In the winter of 1875, Rosa Torres, 22, discovered that no one, not even blood, could save her from a tyrant's grasp. The chill of a Montana morning seeped relentlessly through the thin walls of their cramped homestead, where the constant battle against the elements mirrored the turmoil within. The air hung heavy with the musty scent of aged wood and the faint aroma of yesterday's bread, mixing with the sharp tang of resentment that clung to her like a specter. Rosa had always envisioned a life filled with vibrant possibilities, far removed from the dull grays of her uncle's domain, suppressed beneath the oppressive presence of Rodrigo. "You're worthless at your age. Who would want you?" Rodrigo sneered, his voice dripping with contempt as he towered over her like an unforgiving mountain. His calloused hands clenched into fists, casting a dark shadow across her trembling form. Each cutting word dug into her heart like a dagger, igniting sparks of anger and despair. He stepped closer, the rancid smell of sweat and tobacco filling her nostrils, suffocating her with the weight of his cruelty. Rosa stood small and meek, burdened by an unbearable reality that seemed to drain her spirit with each passing moment. Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to show him the depths of her sorrow. Instead, she stared defiantly at the floor, her sanctuary in moments of torment, and thought back to familial gatherings where mockery twisted her aspirations into shame. How had it come to this? Her thoughts raced, filled with bitter memories of being the butt of their jokes, her dreams blossoming into beautiful flowers only to have them crushed under the boot of her family's derision. "It's not worth it," they said, masking their disdain under the guise of concern. Rodrigo's bellicose voice pierced the air again. "You will marry Miguel. It's settled." The suddenness of it struck her like a physical blow. Miguel, the scraggly traveler with dirt under his nails and a reputation so low it barely registered on the social scale, had been deemed beneath her by her uncle. Yet here she stood, her future penned by hands other than her own, each stroke of the pen driven by her uncle's greed. With trembling hands, Rosa signed the marriage contract, each letter feeling like a crushing weight on her chest, a nail driven into the coffin of her desires. A future devoid of ambition or hope unfurled before her, dark and oppressive, clouding her spirit like the winter fog surrounding the homestead. As time trudged forward, the bitter edges of her life began to soften slightly through the insistence of labor and the promise of spring. Each day felt like a formless void until she found an unexpected solace in the rhythm of work. The seasons shifted, and in the unfolding of spring, new experiences took root amidst the sprawling Montana forests. The sound of axes chopping wood echoed against the trees, breaking the silence that had long defined Rosa's life. Days turned to weeks as she worked alongside Miguel, toiling under the sun-drenched sky, the scent of pine and fresh earth lingering in the air. At first it felt like an obligation, a burden tied to her unwanted marriage. But there, amid the hard work and shared labor, she unearthed the first hints of freedom. "You know how to work the land," Miguel said one evening, his voice rich with admiration, breaking through the monotonous sounds of their tasks. Rosa turned to him, feeling warmth bloom in her chest, a gentle tug of hope igniting a smile upon her lips. Each laugh they exchanged became a thread weaving their lives more closely, filling the air with a sweetness that had long been absent. Their connection blossomed beneath the vast expanse of the clear sky, creating a fragile bond where joy and determination danced together step by step. Yet darkness lurked in the corner of her newfound happiness. Rumors flowed like rivers, the whispers of betrayal winding their way into conversations at the local tavern. She could hear the coarse voices of loggers warning one another about the encroachment upon their territory. What were they planning? Rosa leaned against the rough bark of an ancient tree, her heart heavy with foreboding, the weight of impending betrayal creeping closer like shadows at dusk. "There's more to him than meets the eye," she found herself musing, thoughts swirling around Miguel as the tales of his hidden wealth unfolded through hushed conversations and speculative glances. With each revelation, apprehension tugged at her heart, scratching at the fragile happiness she had begun to build. Was this the man she was marrying, or merely a vessel for Rodrigo's manipulation? Days turned to weeks, and while the relationship between Rosa and Miguel blossomed in the warmth of spring air, a pulse of unrest thrummed beneath the surface, vibrating with uncertainty. The shadows cast by Rodrigo grew longer with each day of challenge that Rosa and Miguel successfully faced together. But they also brightened with the light of love that steadfastly grew between them. Rodrigo's scrutiny tightened like a noose around her neck, jealousy seething through every crack in their home. He watched, consumed by an obsessive need to regain control over Rosa's life, plotting behind closed doors against her very essence. She could feel his presence lurking, an icy reminder of the power he wielded. "You cannot dictate my worth," Rosa finally confronted him one fateful evening, her voice low but steady, ignited by a fierce determination that had taken root deep within her. Each encounter with Rodrigo became an act of rebellion. It was a fierce battle where she drew strength from the love that had blossomed with Miguel. Stepping out from the shadow of her uncle's scorn, she found that her spirit could indeed rise against the bruises left behind by familial loyalty. "Your words will not bury my dreams," Rosa proclaimed, the flames of her conviction illuminating the words like a beacon. Standing beneath the towering pines that had witnessed her tumultuous journey, she felt a surge of rebellion against the tide of Rodrigo's oppressive nature. The whispers of community members crashed together in a swell of courage, driving her resolve deeper. Together, Rosa and Miguel stood shoulder to shoulder against the world, emboldened by the warmth of their growing bond, armed with the labor and hope that had begun to define their days. The shadows of doubt that had held her captive began to tremble, fearful before the collective strength of a newfound love and purpose. As winds shifted, Rosa felt the first stirrings of a dream reborn within her, a flame igniting against adversity, promising the freedom she so desperately craved. This time, she could not be broken. She would rise again and again, transforming the pain of her past into fertile soil from which new dreams would thrive. The sun dipped low over the horizon, casting a golden glow upon the Montana landscape as Rosa closed her eyes, envisioning dreams of freedom, laughter, and love intertwined in a future waiting just beyond her reach. The journey ahead glimmered with possibility, a promise begging her to step boldly into the unknown. With gritty determination, Rosa resolved to step into the light and reclaim her narrative, securing her worth against the looming darkness her uncle threatened to wield, ready to confront him with a relentless spirit forged in the fires of love. She could feel it deep in her bones. A beautiful possibility awaited her, one she was determined to grasp tightly in her hands. As the first light of dawn broke over the Montana landscape, casting a soft glow across the dewy grass, Rosa stood at the homestead's edge, her heart racing with the anticipation of a new day. The air was crisp and alive, each breath a reminder of the freedom she yearned to claim. She watched as the sun ascended, illuminating the rugged terrain that stretched before her. With every sunrise came the promise of renewed possibility. Today would be a turning point in her life. "Ready, Rosa?" Miguel's voice brought her back, grounding her momentarily in the reality of their bond. He stood beside her, his tall figure framed against the backdrop of the awakening land. His hair caught the sunlight, creating a halo effect that made him appear as though he had stepped from the very heart of the wilderness they both loved. "I am," she replied, resolve hardening her voice as she took her first step into their shared day. They moved together, side by side, as they prepared to face the tasks their homestead demanded of them, the steady rhythm of their hearts echoing the work ahead. Days turned into a blur of productive labor and burgeoning affection, each moment spent together, crafting a deeper bond forged by shared struggles and triumphs. They tended to the livestock, stacked firewood, and mended fences with a shared ease that spoke volumes of their growing partnership. With every task, her confidence thrived. She began to envision a life they might build together, one filled with laughter, hard work, and, most importantly, love. On warm afternoons, when the sun hung high and the heavy air buzzed with the song of cicadas, Miguel would toss playful comments her way, his laughter ringing like the sweetest of melodies in her ears. "You might be the hardest worker I've ever met, Rosa. I'll have to start taking notes." Her playful retort flew back. "Be careful, you might just have your ego taken down a notch." They shared laughter that vibrant afternoons, and with it came an unspoken promise of goodness waiting just below the surface. But beneath the layers of joy, the implications of Rosa's new reality weighed heavily. The malicious whisperings of Rodrigo hung endlessly in the air, his presence felt in every shadow that crossed her path. She remained vigilant, each encounter in town thick with potential danger. Yet with Miguel by her side, his steadfast demeanor and quiet strength, she felt emboldened. One afternoon, as they trekked to town for supplies, Rosa could feel the tension crackling through the air. The townsfolk had begun to notice her absence from the shackles of her uncle's grasp, and whispers crept toward her like wildfire. "Rosa, we should be careful," Miguel cautioned as they approached the marketplace, his mood shifting as he sensed her eagerness to engage. "Rodrigo won't be happy to see you. Let's keep our heads low." "Let them whisper," she replied, determination blazing in her eyes. I'm not afraid of what they think anymore. And as they entered the bustling square, her heart raced with adrenaline. Vendors shouted out their prices, children darted between carts, and familiar faces turned to look at her, some puzzled, others filled with curiosity. Each gaze ignited the fire within her, and she stood a little taller as she stepped into the crowded space. Just then, Rodrigo cut through the throng like a storm cloud against the bright sky. His tall frame loomed over everyone, eyes dark and calculating. Anger flared in her chest as he spotted her, marching directly toward her with a swagger that betrayed his intended intimidation. "Rosa, what are you doing here?" he barked, and the surrounding chatter fell into silence as the crowd noticed the confrontation brewing. "I'm collecting supplies like anyone else, Rodrigo," she replied, her voice unwavering as she faced him head-on, confidence radiating from her. "I no longer answer to you." His eyes narrowed, and he leaned closer, menace coloring his voice. "You think you can just walk away? You're still mine, and I'll not allow you to embarrass me in front of the townsfolk." Fear twisted in her stomach, igniting a pulse of defiance. "I won't be yours any longer. I'm forging my own life, and no one will hold me back, not even you." Gasps echoed around them, shock rippling through the crowd as her boldness echoed louder than the whispers. The tension snapped in the air, and she could feel Miguel stepping closer, providing silent support as she stood firm against the tide of her uncle's anger. Rodrigo's expression shifted from fury to something darker, an unhinged menace threatening to unravel. "You'll regret this, Rosa. I'll make sure of it." At that moment, Rosa felt a wave of collective courage ripple through the crowd, friends and neighbors collectively asserting that they would stand by her. "Leave her alone," shouted a voice in the crowd. Eliza stepped out, eyes blazing with protective fire. "You have no claim over her anymore, Rodrigo." As fractured alliances teetered, Rosa's heart surged with hope. The storm cloud of Rodrigo's threats seemed to falter slightly, and a flicker of doubt etched upon his features. Perhaps today would mark a change for them all. "Rosa, we won't have you mistreated any longer," Eliza continued, rallying the townsfolk around her. "Together, we can challenge this tyranny." As murmurs of agreement began to swirl through the marketplace, Rosa felt her heart swelling with gratitude and newfound resolve. Together, they stood united against the man who had chained her spirit for far too long, emboldened by a shared spirit of resistance. Just then, Rosa caught Miguel's eye, and a knowing smile spread across his face, filled with admiration for her bravery. He stepped forward, extending his arm possessively around her shoulders, amplifying her strength. "It's time we reclaim what's rightfully ours," he spoke, turning to face the crowd. "We won't stand by and allow one man's greed to dictate our lives any longer." With those words, a wave of cheers erupted among the townsfolk, lifting her spirit as she embraced the warmth of their support, a promise that together they could achieve change. "Let's gather evidence. We need to expose Rodrigo for the villain he is," Eliza suggested, her voice a rallying cry that fired the crowd to action. They quickly mobilized, voices raised, and plans devised in fervor as Rosa found herself amidst a community that had once seemed distant and unresponsive. It was more than support. It was a movement toward liberation. Days blurred into nights as they worked tirelessly to gather testimonies and evidence against Rodrigo's cruel methods, neighbors coming forward with their own stories of his tyranny, validating Rosa's experience. Each account added bricks to the wall of their resistance, and together they fortified the bonds of shared oppression. Rosa and Miguel spent each late evening poring over notes and organizing testimonies. The flickering candlelight illuminated their tired faces, but it couldn't dim the spark that ignited in their eyes as they shared hopes of a fairer world. "We can bring light to the hidden truths, Rosa," Miguel said one night, running his fingers through his hair, exhaustion painted across his brow. "It's larger than us now." She nodded in fervent agreement, but couldn't shake the gnawing fear that clawed at her insides. What if he retaliates? What if we fail? "Failure is not an option," Miguel replied, pulling her closer, their foreheads nearly touching. "You showed everyone today that your voice matters. We have strength in numbers now." And as the moon glowed softly above them, reassurance washed over her in waves. She whispered back, "Then let us stand united." Rosa felt courage urging her forward as she stepped into the square where a platform was hastily assembled, anticipation swirling in the sea of faces before her. Each face redirected her focus, blending into a singular image of hope ignited by shared adversity. As she ascended the platform, all eyes upon her, she grasped the edge and drew in a steadying breath. "Thank you, everyone, for standing with me today," she began, her voice ringing out with clarity and strength. "Together we've endured. Together we will rise. It's time to turn our backs against darkness and fight for our truth." Cheers erupted from the crowd, a unified roar that propelled her heart into a crescendo of possibility. "We will expose this man's cruelty. Injustice will not go unchallenged any longer. Rodrigo's deceit ends now." Her voice echoed with renewed vigor as she shared her story, unveiling the details of exploitation and cruelty cloaked beneath the guise of kinship. The gathered townsfolk leaned closer, increasingly engaged by the fervor that radiated from her. She continued, "We'll no longer be silenced by fear. Today starts anew. Today we bloom amid the ashes of oppression. Today we unveil truth." The crowd erupted in applause, emotion surging as the energy oscillated around her, warmth blossoming like spring flowers in thawing soil. As she finished, she barely noticed Rodrigo's late arrival, his presence palpable with dark energy like an approaching storm. The atmosphere shifted momentarily as tension crackled through the air, but Rosa stood firm, emboldened by the overwhelming support surrounding her. "Enough!" Rodrigo bellowed, his voice hitting like thunder against the joyous cheers. "You know nothing of loyalty. You can't go against blood." But the tide had turned. The townsfolk pressed forward, voices raised, chants echoing through the air as they rallied behind Rosa. "No more! No more!" With conviction echoing around her like a symphony, Rosa stared into Rodrigo's enraged eyes. She would not back down. "You do not own me. My choices belong to me, and I will make them without your tyranny shadowing my life." The crowd erupted into cheers, and the ground beneath her felt solid, the very fabric of their unity banding together to forge new beginnings. With every beat of the heart, Rosa stood firm against the adversities that had once overwhelmed her. Today was a turning point. It was a beginning. She understood that this fight extended beyond herself. It flourished for the dreams of women and men alike, anchoring in the ideologies of freedom that would weave through the generations. And just as the sun began to descend on the horizon, a fierce determination grew within her. With pride-swelling chest, Tara endeavored to rise above the chaos. Today, they would claim their power, lighting the path for their futures. As the vibrant colors of dusk shrouded the town in hues of orange and lavender, an electrifying energy hummed in the air. The cheers of the crowd rang in Rosa's ears, the echoes of her defiance swirling around her as she stepped off the platform and into the territory of newfound possibilities. She had ignited something profound within the townsfolk, a spirit imbued with courage and resistance. But she was acutely aware that her battle with Rodrigo had just begun. In the days following the rally, Rosa and Miguel worked tirelessly, channeling the momentum from their public declaration into tangible action. They organized a meeting with the townspeople. It was time to devise a plan to confront Rodrigo and expose his abuse of power. "We need to gather evidence and testimonies," Miguel said, looking over the gathered papers scattered across their modest kitchen table. "If we want to make our case, the community must see that we are not alone in this." Rosa nodded, her eyes scanning each document. Wounds too long ignored lay bare in those papers, echoing with the voices of those who had suffered at Rodrigo's hands. With the dew still glistening on the grass, the next morning, the townsfolk convened in the small community hall. A circle of anxious faces filled the space, a tapestry of emotions stitching them together in solidarity. Rosa stood at the front, her heart racing in her chest as fear and hope intermingled like a heady cocktail. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. "We are here because of a shared pain. Rodrigo has tried to intimidate us, to silence our voices. But today, we stand united." As she spoke, she could feel the strength of the community rising like smoke from a campfire, drawing everyone closer together. She shared her own testimony, a raw and vulnerable recounting of the years she had felt suffocated under Rodrigo's oppressive rule. "I was raised to believe I was worthless," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "But I've learned that we are not defined by the actions of others. Our worth comes from within." With each heartfelt story shared, a wave of solidarity rippled through the room. People took turns standing to share their experiences of oppression and cruelty, telling of how Rodrigo's tantrums had veiled their worth and individuality. Sobs broke free from those who stood in support, their pain spilling into the open air like droplets of rain. Rosa could see the faces of her neighbors transform, shame giving way to resolve. "We are stronger than we have ever realized," she declared, her voice rising. "With each story, we create a foundation upon which we can build." "There are those who will try to silence us," Miguel added, stepping forward to stand next to her. "But we cannot let fear govern our lives any longer. We must speak out, and we must be heard." The room erupted in fervor, everyone in attendance binding their hearts through shared experience and truth. They spoke of gathering witnesses, collecting the evidence needed, mystified by the outpouring of support that surged back and forth in the room. As days turned into weeks, the rhythm of preparation grew more hectic. Rosa and Miguel focused on securing witness statements, collecting physical evidence of Rodrigo's abuses against the community, while simultaneously enhancing their own skills. Rosa dived into learning about law and rights, absorbed by the knowledge that could arm her fight against her uncle's machinations. "Rosa, there's a workshop on the rights of women in agriculture happening next week," Miguel noted one evening, his brows knitted together. "We should attend." She nodded, excitement rushing through her. "Understanding our rights will only fortify our fight." Their partnership grew deeper, romantic sparks slowly igniting into a blazing fire. Every shared moment at workshops became a chance to steal kisses or embrace without fear of what lay behind them. Laughter flowed easily, joys soaring higher, as newfound connections blossomed in tandem with their resistance. One evening, after a lengthy day of gathering testimonies, Rosa and Miguel found themselves at the edge of the woods near their homestead, bathed in the soft glow of twilight. They settled beneath the towering pines that had witnessed the fracture of their lives, and together they noticed the stars beginning to emerge, twinkling like distant promises of hope. "Do you think we can really do this?" Rosa asked, her voice a whisper beneath the vastness of the sky. Miguel turned to her, his features softened in the dim light. "We already are, Rosa. You're leading this fight with grace and tenacity. People believe in you." His words filled her chest with warmth, and she leaned her head on his shoulder. "What if it's not enough?" His arm encircled her. "When you fight for what is right, every step forward matters. We will do this together." "Together," she echoed, relishing the weight of his presence beside her. They sat there in silence, sharing the tranquility of the moment, intertwining their dreams with the fabric of the universe around them. After days of gathering testimonies, the time to confront Rodrigo was at hand. The townspeople organized a gathering for a public meeting, with intentions clearly laid out, to confront Rodrigo and challenge his tyranny directly. Rosa's pulse quickened as that date loomed closer, uncertainty mingling with excitement. As she stepped into the meeting hall, a tangible unease buzzed in the air. Townsfolk had come to bear witness, the grocery store owner and the blacksmith, all eager to see justice served. Today would be the culmination of their collective efforts. "Let's stand tall," Rosa encouraged, looking each person in the eye. "Together we will rise." The doors swung open, and in walked Rodrigo, flanked by an air of arrogance and entitlement. The murmurings of the crowd rose, tension palpable, yet victory seemed to shimmer on the horizon as Rosa stood at the front, unwavering. "Here comes the great Rodrigo," a voice from the back quipped. "Let's see how he responds to the truth." "Enough!" Rodrigo shouted, his boisterous voice commanding attention. "You lot have no authority over me. You've banded together in embarrassment, but you're mistaken if you think that will change the truth." The townsfolk bristled, embers of anger spiraling up as Rosa took a step forward, heart racing. "We've made our choice, Rodrigo. We've claimed our voices, and you will be held accountable for your actions." Rodrigo advanced, arms crossed, face set in a scowl. "And what proof do you have? Not a single family can testify against me without losing everything." Silence fell momentarily as Rosa glanced around the room at the faces staring back at her, courage washing over her like a vast tide. "We have proof, Rodrigo," she proclaimed, meeting his gaze with unyielding determination. "We have gathered testimonials from your victims." Gasps filled the hall as she proceeded to present multiple townspeople, the widow who had suffered in silence from his harassment, the families ruined by unjust debts, all telling their truths, one after the other. The air crackled with realizations as the stories unfolded, streams of anguish coalescing into indomitable strength. With each testimony, Rodrigo's expression faltered, his bravado eroding as reality crashed down around him. "You're nothing but a coward hiding behind threats. You'll pay for what you've done," shouted a man across the room. The crowd erupted in unified support, voices rising in passionate defiance. The room pulsated with energy as Rosa took her turn, her heart pounding fiercely in her chest. "For too long you've held power by fear," she declared, her voice steady. "But no more will we cower under the weight of your tyranny." Rodrigo's demeanor shifted, panic flashing in his eyes, but he gritted his teeth and glared. "Hang the liar! Hang her!" His voice echoed, seeking to pull back the strength they had forged. But the tides of support surged, drowning out his desperate claims, waves crashing with cries of, "No more!" In that electric moment of chaos, Rosa saw the cracks in Rodrigo's facade deepening. His reign over fear had begun to shatter as threads of community unity solidified their resolve. Amid the roar, Rosa knew they were on the precipice of change, standing resolutely as their voices collided. With the truth laid bare, the town solemnly acknowledged the darkness that had clung to them for so long, illuminating a path for a better future. The bonds they had forged in the face of adversity flowed seamlessly around them, stitching together a community reborn. The confrontation reached a boiling point, unity taking root as more townsfolk joined their pleas for justice. The crowd demanded accountability, their voices a chorus of truth, echoing rosies of righteousness that rose above the chaos. Rodrigo, backed into a corner, lashed out one last time. "You'll regret this. Mark my words." His words hung heavy in the air, but as fear attempted to grip Rosa once more, she inhaled deeply. "No, Rodrigo, you will regret underestimating the strength of this town," she declared with conviction. "We are taking our lives back." Determination surged as the townsfolk rallied closer, hands joined and resolute. This was a fight for more than just their past. It was for a future wrought with hope, justice, and a sense of belonging reclaimed from the dry roots of despair. As the meeting drew to a close, a sense of fervor filled the room. Rosa could feel positivity swelling, hope cascading over her like sunlight breaking after a storm. Together, they had ignited a flame of change, and though the fight was far from over, they understood that with each step forward, and every story shared, the past could not snub their potential. The community had come together, stronger than ever, their voices magnified against the hollow echoes of isolation. Rosa tasted the sweetness of victory, fueling her ambition and lighting the path toward a brighter future. Standing amidst the charged atmosphere, she felt the answer to her question bloom within her heart. Yes, they could do this. This was merely the first chapter, not just for Rosa, but for every soul who dared to dream of a different life among the towering pines of Montana. In the weeks following the electrifying town meeting, the vibrancy of Pine Hollow manifested in small yet profound ways. Each day felt like a new tapestry woven from the threads of hope, resilience, and the unyielding bond shared among the townsfolk. Rosa felt invigorated, her heart beating in rhythm with the collective pulse of the community as they came together to forge a brighter future, a future they now believed was within their grasp. As the sun emerged over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the white-capped mountains, Rosa leaped from her bed, enthusiasm surging through her. The festival they had planned, the Day of Unity, was just days away. Daydreams of laughter, movement, and an explosion of energy filled her thoughts as she rushed through her morning routine. The scent of fresh coffee pervaded the air as she walked into the kitchen, where her mother prepared breakfast. "Good morning, Mama," Rosa greeted, stealing a slice of toasted bread from the counter. "Good morning, Rosa," her mother replied, a warm smile lighting her face. "You're excited about the festival?" "Excited doesn't begin to cover it," Rosa exclaimed, her eyes shining. "This is our chance to show everyone how strong we are together. We've all fought too hard to let fear control us anymore." As the day wore on, energy seeped into every corner of Pine Hollow. Neighbors worked tirelessly, transforming the town square into a vibrant spectacle. Banners fluttered in the breeze, and colorful booths were set up to showcase local artisans and craftspeople. Children giggled and chased one another, their laughter a sweet reminder of innocence that had been overshadowed for too long. But beneath the surface excitement, a tension lingered, a reminder that Rodrigo's shadow still loomed, ready to pounce at any moment. Rosa felt it, a twinge of unease that coiled around her heart. "Even after this festival, he may try to disrupt us," she muttered as she helped Miguel arrange a booth filled with handmade goods. "Let him try," Miguel replied, determination shining through his voice. "We've come too far now. He can't extinguish what we've built." The hours passed swiftly, and soon the townspeople gathered for the festival's opening ceremony. Rosa stood on the makeshift stage crafted from wooden crates, an electrifying mix of nerves and excitement racing through her. She surveyed the crowd, noting their anxious glances flickering back to her. A sea of familiar faces looked up, reflecting the struggle and hope they shared. "Welcome, friends, family, and neighbors," Rosa called out, her voice ringing through the square. "Today marks a landmark in our journey, a celebration of our spirit and unity." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Rosa could feel the embers of empowerment igniting all around her. "We gather today not just to laugh and dance, but to reaffirm our commitment to one another. Today we stand firmly together against fear. Today we reclaim our rights." As her words soared through the air, an unexpected figure emerged from the shadows of the gathering crowd. It was Rodrigo, standing defiantly with a group of his loyalists. A hush swept through the crowd, apprehension dancing like fireflies in the twilight. Rosa swallowed hard, steadying herself against the sudden chill that crept over the festivities. Rodrigo's eyes sparkled with malice. "What a charming show, Rosa," he sneered, contempt dripping from his voice. "You think these petty gatherings can protect you from the consequences of your rebellion?" Rosa stood firm, her heart racing but her voice resolute. "We no longer cower to threats, Rodrigo. Our strength lies in our unity, and you will not divide us." The townsfolk rallied closer together, forming a protective barrier as Rosa continued to speak. "This festival is a declaration of our independence and our refusal to be governed by fear. You will not take our hope from us any longer." Rodrigo's face twisted with anger, but for the first time, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "You have no idea what you're provoking," he spat, taking a step closer. "No, you're mistaken, Rodrigo," Rosa retorted, looking straight into his gaze. "We fought through your darkness and emerged as a community of resilience and strength. You've underestimated us for too long." With a defiant cheer traveling through the crowd, Rodrigo hesitated for a moment as he weighed his options. The air crackled with anticipation, but just as the tension mounted, he turned abruptly and stormed away, flanked by his men. Rosa felt a wave of relief wash over her, the festival erupting back into cheers and laughter. Families returned to enjoying the festivities, music filling the air and lighting sparks of joy across the square. The event unfolded perfectly. Craft booths displayed colorful wares, children spun in circles, and elders shared anecdotes of the past alongside tales of hope. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, the glow of lanterns illuminated the gathering, transforming Pine Hollow into a wonderland of community and connection. As the night progressed, Rosa found herself sitting by the bonfire, surrounded by friends. The flames danced and flickered, casting glowing reflections on their faces. Miguel settled beside her, a thoughtful expression worn across his brow. "You've become a beacon for these people, Rosa. They believe in you." "I never expected any of this," she replied quietly. "Sometimes I feel the weight of everything we've fought against, you know? What if we can't hold on to this unity?" Miguel nudged her gently, his smile reassuring. "We will hold on to it. Unity takes time, but you've kindled the fire within this community. They remember what it's like to fight for their lives. You're the one leading them. I just want to see us thrive, for everyone to feel safe and free," Rosa said, staring into the flames as they crackled and popped. At that moment, Agnes joined them, her eyes sparkling and her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Rosa, Miguel, come look at this. We've gathered nearly twice the signatures we anticipated." Rosa's heart swelled, a rush of pride rushing through her. "That's incredible. So we're ready to take the next step?" Agnes grinned broadly. "Absolutely. The council meeting is scheduled in a week, but we need to prepare. It's time to present the petitions and hold them accountable." With a new sense of purpose, Rosa and her friends dove headfirst into preparation. They spent countless evenings crafting their argument, collecting testimonies, and rehearsing for days that would follow. Each individual voice was valued, creating a richer tapestry of experiences that highlighted the need for change. The night of the council meeting arrived, crisp and clear. Luminescent stars adorned the night sky as Rosa stood outside the council hall, her heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and dread. She could sense the weight of their collective resolve in the air, swirling around her like the gentle breeze. "Tonight is the night we demand change," she whispered to herself, inhaling deeply while her stomach fluttered. The memory of the festival flooded her with power, encouraging her to carry the fire they had ignited into the next phase of their journey. Inside, the hall buzzed with murmurs, townsfolk filling every available seat, a wave of solidarity from all backgrounds. Each individual carried stories written on their hearts, eager to speak, ready to stand together. Rosa fastened her grip on Miguel's hand, feeling his encouragement pulsing through their shared memories of triumph. When it was finally their turn, she stepped forward, her heart surging with pride as she stood before her community. "Thank you all for gathering tonight," Rosa began, her voice steady. The crowd listened. Silence filled the room. "We are here not just to speak for ourselves, but for those who have suffered injustice at the hands of Rodrigo. Tonight we bring forth documented experiences of oppression and mistreatment woven into every signature collected." As she presented their case, Rosa poured her heart into every word, recounting the stories of loss, pain, and resilience that had become intertwined with the lives of Pine Hollow's people. Her passion enveloped the crowd like a soft embrace, and when she finished, murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall, voices rising like an anthem. One by one, the townsfolk stepped forward to share their stories. Agnes, the widow whose husband had been mistreated, the blacksmith expressing his fear of losing his livelihood, the struggling farmer fighting against impossible odds. Each voice served as a building block, their narratives constructing an unwavering foundation of truth. As the final speaker stepped away from the podium, the atmosphere crackled with tension and anticipation. Faces were alight with determination. The council members looked visibly moved, their expressions gradually shifting from skepticism to acknowledgement of the battle these people had waged against fear. The head councilman cleared his throat, hesitation in his gaze as he glanced at the gathered crowd. "Your stories resonate deeply, and I applaud your strength in voicing such painful experiences. We will take this into serious consideration and deliberate on the matter to implement change." Rosa's heart soared as the council's reply echoed through the hall. "We will continue to work toward justice and accountability for all." As the meeting drew to a close, hope wove through the air like a warm blanket, wrapping the town in its embrace. Rosa felt a new chapter unfurl before her, and with each breath, she could sense a glimmering future sparking to life. Standing amongst her friends, united in purpose, she realized they were just beginning to carve their path forward, together, toward freedom. The flickering embers of passion burned within her as she envisioned a future where every voice would be valued, where dreams could flourish freely beneath the vast Montana skies. And as they stepped out into the cool night, Rosa could taste the sweetness of potential wrapped in the victory they had fought so hard to reclaim. A future where unity stood undeterred by challenge, a future glowing like the stars bright above. The days that followed the council meeting were a whirlwind of anticipation, hope, and unyielding determination. Pine Hollow felt electric, the air filled with chatter and excitement as townsfolk buzzed about the potential changes on the horizon. Rosa awoke each day with the sense that they were standing on the precipice of a great and necessary shift. As the sun rose over the rugged mountains, Rosa gathered her closest friends, Miguel and Agnes, at her cabin to discuss the next steps in their campaign for justice. They sat at the wooden table, sunlight spilling through the window, illuminating the flickers of hope reflected in their eyes. "I think we need to keep the momentum going," Rosa said, her hands clasped tightly, her mind racing with possibilities. "The council might be considering our words, but we can't just sit back and wait for them to act. We need to show them how serious we are." Miguel leaned forward, enthusiasm shining through. "What if we organized a march? A peaceful demonstration to rally support from not just our town but neighboring communities. We could show them we stand united." "Yes," Agnes exclaimed, her voice rising. "This is not just about us anymore. We're speaking for those who have suffered in silence. A march could amplify our cause, draw eyes and ears from all around." Rosa felt the fire within her grow. "Let's do it. We can prepare banners, share our stories. We'll make it impossible for them to ignore us." The trio spent the next few weeks tirelessly mobilizing the community. They canvassed on foot and horseback, spreading the word about the upcoming march, highlighting the importance of claiming their voices. With each conversation, they witnessed an awakening. People who once walked with their heads down began to lift them up, sharing their experiences not just in whispers, but in passionate declarations. As the day of the march approached, excitement mingled with anxiety. Everyone turned out, wearing an array of colors, each fabric a symbol of their unique stories, intertwining with a shared purpose. Rosa made sure to spark conversation between all age groups, from children drawing cheerful designs on protest signs to elders recalling tales of resilience from their youth. On a bright morning filled with promise, Rosa stood at the forefront as the crowd began to gather in the town square. The atmosphere was palpable, charged with anticipation as friends and neighbors united. As the final few participants arrived, Rosa climbed atop a wooden crate to address the crowd, her heart racing with adrenaline. "Friends, thank you for coming today. We gather not just to march, but to ignite a flame of change that cannot be extinguished." Cheers erupted from the crowd, hands raised and spirits soaring. "We've faced darkness and fear, but we refuse to let it dictate our lives any longer. Today we stand for every voice that has been silenced and every story that has gone unheard." With Rosa's rallying words, the crowd responded with united shouts, a chorus of strength that echoed through the town. "We deserve justice. We deserve to be heard." The march began, flowing like a river through the streets of Pine Hollow and beyond. As they marched, they held high their banners, each emblazoned with tales that echoed the community's enduring spirit. The sound of their footsteps marked a powerful rhythm. For Rosa, it felt like the heartbeat of the town itself. Halfway through the march, they encountered some resistance, a group of Rodrigo's loyalists, hardened and ready to provoke. Rosa felt her pulse quicken, the air heavy with uncertainty, as she spotted their sneering faces. "Hold firm, everyone. Stay united," she called, her voice rising above the tension. Rodrigo's followers spot-checked with contempt, attempting to throw doubts into the hearts of the marchers. "You think you can stand here and make demands? You're nothing without him, and you'll all see that soon." But the community held strong, rising taller than ever, united against the taunts. "We are something," Miguel shouted defiantly, stepping forward. "We are a community that refuses to live in fear. Today is not just about us. It's about the future we are claiming for our children and their children after them." Their voices melded together, drowning out the bitterness of Rodrigo's men. Fear transformed into fire, the rhythm of their march pushing them forward, emboldened by the power of unity. The atmosphere shifted as the townsfolk pressed on, unwavering in their resolve. As they reached the heart of town, Rosa felt a renewed sense of determination in the whispers of the wind, felt it wrapped around her like a cloak. The gathered crowd filled the town square, each face representing the toll of unanswered anguish transformed into strength and grit. And then, it happened. A surprising turnout of supporters from neighboring areas emerged, their voices joining the crescendo of calls for change. Rosa surveyed the blossoming crowd, where love and resilience mingled, eventually washing over her like a soothing balm. "Together! Together!" Over and over the chant rose and filled the space, echoing off the buildings like a new anthem, a promise of solidarity. Having reached the square, Rosa climbed back atop the crate, her heart racing as she saw familiar faces shine with anticipation. She focused on her breath, steadying herself against the torrent of emotions that coursed through her. "This is what we can achieve when we stand together," she declared. "We are not alone in this fight. We refuse to allow those who perpetuate fear to own our stories or dictate our futures. We deserve to be treated with respect. We deserve justice," the unified crowd roared back, amplifying the energy around them like the crescendo of an orchestra, resonating with purpose. Just as Rosa began to settle into the rhythm of empowerment, the tension returned. Rodrigo's figure appeared at the edge of the square, flanked by a few menacing shadows. The crowd fell quiet, eyes darting towards him, filled with a mixture of trepidation and defiance. "Enough of this charade," Rodrigo shouted, his voice breaking through the unity with a sharp edge. "Do you truly believe you can challenge me? This is far from over. You are recalling your history of being powerless and meek." Rosa felt the resolve of the crowd behind her, like an unyielding wall. She raised her chin defiantly and stepped forward. "No, Rodrigo. We have reclaimed our voices, our identities. Today we show that your fear can no longer envelop us. We choose justice, truth, and determination over silence. You underestimate the strength of this town." A wave of murmured agreement passed through the crowd, reaffirming their union. Here, united by a common purpose, they held their ground against Rodrigo. With one final rallying cry, Rosa declared, "Today we take a step forward not just for ourselves, but for anyone who has faced injustice. We are walking into a future where we reclaim our lives, without fear." Rodrigo tried to step forward, anger radiating from him like a dark cloud. But the townsfolk collectively pushed back, a wall standing firm against threatening shadows. His face darkened as he realized he could not penetrate the resolve they shared. With that, the crowd roared once more, a thunderous cheer that resounded through the air as they stepped forward, stepping firmly into their newfound identities of courage, strength, and power. The march transformed into a beautiful celebration of defiance and unity, an unwavering testament to the power of community that they had built together. As Rosa glanced at the horizon, the sun cast a golden hue across the landscape, a reflection of the hope that now flooded Pine Hollow. The path forward was illuminated, paved with courage as they marched toward freedom, hand in hand with their dreams. They were just beginning to carve their path toward justice, and this time they would not falter. As the march unfolded, the vibrant energy of Pine Hollow surged through the streets, transforming the atmosphere into a celebration of resilience and hope. Rosa stood at the forefront, the rhythm of chants and footsteps echoing around her like the heartbeat of the community. With every inch they moved forward, she felt the weight of fear lift from their shoulders, replaced by a burgeoning sense of freedom. "Today is not just another day," Rosa called out, her voice ringing clear and confident. "It's a declaration, a promise that we will no longer live under the shadow of oppression." The crowd responded with deafening cheers, their excitement palpable, lifting her spirit higher. The sun glimmered on their banners, each one bearing testimonies of struggle and strength. Stories that had long been hidden in the darkness were now stitched into the very fabric of their march. "No more silence," they shouted in unison, a symphony of voices united by shared experiences. Suddenly, from the back of the crowd, Agnes stepped forward, her face glowing with determination. "We need to ensure our demands reach the council. They cannot ignore us." Rosa nodded, affirming Agnes's sentiment. "We are not just voices in the wind. Let's gather signatures. Let's spread awareness. We want change, and we will get it." A tidal wave of energy surged through the masses, and people began to group together, passing out papers like sacred texts, each proclamation a step toward reclaiming their lives. As the march wound through the heart of Pine Hollow, they captured the attention of townsfolk in adjoining streets. Curious faces peered from behind windows. Children dashed outside, drawn by the electrifying spirit of the moment, joining the throng in excited wonder. Rosa felt her heart swell. This was more than a march. It was a movement, a burgeoning hope that spread like wildfire. As they approached the town square, the atmosphere grew almost electric, anticipation hanging in the air. Rosa stepped onto a makeshift podium constructed from crates, glancing around at the sea of faces illuminated by the shimmering twilight. "We stand on this soil not just for ourselves, but for every man, woman, and child who has suffered under the weight of injustice. Today we reclaim our dignity." Her words sparked another round of cheers, the solidarity igniting like a beacon of light pushing back against the darkness. The crowd was more than a collection of individuals. They were a united force, invigorated by their collective strength. But amidst this uplifting fervor, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows. Rodrigo. Anger radiated from him, a dark storm cloud hanging over the gathering. "Enough of this charade," he shouted, attempting to shatter their unity. "Do you truly believe you can challenge me? Your history of meekness will return, make no mistake." Rosa felt a flicker of fear but quickly buried it beneath the weight of her resolve. "Rodrigo, you don't understand. This is not a charade. It's a reckoning. We will not be counted as weak any longer." Her voice carried the strength of her convictions, and with every word, she felt a surge of support from the crowd. The townsfolk rallied around her, their voices rising in defiance. "We have faced fear, and today we stand strong. You do not control our destiny." With each passionate shout, Rosa could sense the tide turning, the collective power of the community pushing back against Rodrigo's snarling threats. Rodrigo's countenance darkened, realizing he was outnumbered, the energy of the townsfolk too powerful to diminish. As he stepped forward, it was not an act of aggression, but a desperate attempt to maintain control. Yet the townspeople held steadfast, ground firm, a united front of defiance born from years of suffering. "Your power over us is gone. This moment belongs to us," Rosa proclaimed, extending her arms toward the crowd, feeling the palpable force of their unity surrounding her. Chants of "Justice! Unity!" filled the air, reverberating through the town square like an anthem of renewal. Rodrigo faltered, frustration etched across his features. The solidarity that Rosa fostered felt like an unyielding barrier against his oppressive presence. Unwilling to be silenced, Rosa stepped forward boldly. "We choose justice. We choose each other, and we will not back down." As the crowd cheered, she barely noticed the way Rodrigo retreated, unable to shatter their resolve. Emboldened by that triumph, Rosa took a deep breath, her heart swelling with pride for her people. Their voices intertwined, echoing their strength and aspirations, creating a vivid tapestry of future possibilities. With the sun sinking lower and stars beginning to twinkle above, the ambiance shifted to a celebration of tenacity and hope. Laughter and songs permeated the air as the vibrancy of their achievements began to settle into the very fabric of Pine Hollow. Tonight, under the vast sky, they stood hand in hand, feeling the warmth of communal love wrap around them like a vibrant cloak. They had ignited a fire that would not be extinguished easily. It would burn brightly as they forged ahead into a new chapter. This was their moment. Together, they would illuminate the path ahead with hope, courage, and unyielding determination. Rosa smiled wide, certain that the fight for justice had only just begun, and she could hardly wait to see what the future held for Pine Hollow.